Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shout Out with Sage. I'm Sage Stevens. And to give you some background and premise for the show, it is to give gratitude and acknowledgement to those people who have helped or inspired us reach the next level in our lives. My quest is to find moments and people to make LA and the world a little nicer of a place. And with that, I want to welcome my guest today, who is a screenwriter and producer. He has done The Boondocks, My Wife and Kids, Everybody Hates Chris, Marvel's Runaways, and he is currently working on HBO's new series, Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty on HBO. It's a dramatic look at the glitz and glamour of the 1980s LA Lakers team based on Jeff Pearlman's best-selling nonfiction book, Showtime, Magic, Kareem, Riley, and the Los Angeles Lakers dynasty of the 1980s. He is also creating and show running Things That Make White People Uncomfortable, so maybe I should leave my own show right now, based on Michael Bennett's book. And today we have a great screenwriter with us, Rodney Barnes.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Oh, wait, and I also forgot to mention that you received the key to your city recently.
Yes, I did.
And how was that? Was that like a throwback for you, like a full circle moment?
It was. I don't think anyone ever would have thought, with me growing up in Annapolis, that one day I'd have the key to the city. So it was certainly a surprise, but an honor nonetheless.
And was there anyone there that helped you or inspired you to take the path that you did?
Yeah, a lot of somebodies. I mean, it was a full house of people who, at various stages of my life, in early childhood, through high school, through early adult, a myriad of people who believed in me, supported me, said the right thing at the right time, or said the thing I needed to hear at the right time to help me get to where I get to talk to you today.
Right. And would you like to discuss maybe one pivotal moment? Like, was there a point where you might, change career paths or something?
There was a period of time when I was in my early 20s where I wasn't really headed in a direction, and sort of kind of lost. And I had a friend who happened to be there the other night, and he said that I told him I didn't know what I should do with my life. And he said, if you could do anything, what would it be? And I immediately said I would write TV shows and movies. And he said, just go do that. And I immediately came up with a bunch of excuses as to why I'm from Maryland, I don't know anybody, et cetera,
exactly.
et cetera. Everybody in Hollywood must be a genius and all of this. And
I'm not smart enough.
No, he said, just take one step towards it and see what happens. And I took his advice, and one step led to another, and to another, and to here I am.
So people were helping you and inspiring you. And how did that go?
It was a great night. I mean, you mean in regards to the key to the city ceremony, or
yes,
in general?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a great night. It was great catching up with everyone, and it was a really great night.
Okay, I see. And so you recently were nominated for the Eisner Award, which is the Academy Award for comic books, more or less. How did that come into fruition?
I've been writing a book, Philadelphia. It's about vampires in Philadelphia for about 2 years. And one day I got an email saying that we were nominated for an award. And it's a great honor because it's a creator-owned thing. It's not like some of the books that I write for established characters in the Star Wars universe or the Marvel universe. It's something that I created along with my illustrator, Jason Sean Alexander. And it was really, really great to be recognized by your peers. And, it's always an honor. And especially when you put out a lot of work, I think, across the board, regardless of the medium, anytime your peers give you any recognition, it's always a special place in my heart for that.
Yes. And what part of the creative process is like the hardest for you and the most fun for you?
Well, I mean, I'm a writer, so all of the writing is difficult to lesser or greater degrees. I mean, the discipline that comes with writing and writing as much as I do, because I write movies, I write TV shows, I write comics, and I do them all at the same time. So the discipline of having to every day sit down and write when, I want to go outside and play like everybody else. And figuring out a reason or a way to convince myself to come in this room and sit down and do the work is always the most difficult part.
Do you ever have writer's block or anything? Is there ever a time where you like have a hard time thinking up ideas or
No,
getting it going?
no, it's not so much any writer's block. I mean, it's just times where I face resistance where I don't want to do it. And I think a lot of writers sort of are hit with that. A lot of times when writers say they have writer's block, it's just the obstinance or oppositional defiance that comes with not wanting to do it, because it's not the easiest thing to do when you don't want to do it. I mean, I was looking for another fancy way of saying it, but it really is. It's a lonely road to sit in a room
Yes,
by yourself.
writing. I would imagine, because I've written a few things, obviously not at your level, but yeah, like you're just sitting there at the screen, trying to find things to say, and what is the where do you get your ideas from? Like you have so much, like when I was doing research, I mean, you have all these comic books and shows. Where do you get all that inspiration from for those ideas?
um, I mean, the two places I would go to immediately is my imagination,
Mm.
and the second one would be, I'm the only child, so I spend a lot of time watching television and movies, and I'm sure just in my subconscious I absorbed a lot of stuff.
Mm.
So between those two working together, imagination and subconscious, I'd say probably that, and then maybe even a muse that comes in from time to time to
Mm.
help me along the way.
When you're working on something that's, let's say, like with the Lakers, that's based on real people and icons of society and a mythology, how is that a different type of process? Like, how do you go about that when it's based on true, like real life experience, people?
I mean, I think the trying to be empathetic when you're telling someone's story that doesn't have a hand in or say in what the way you're telling the story, the things that you're choosing to say about those people. If someone was telling the story of my life and they
Mm.
chose my worst moments, that probably I wouldn't be happy about that
No,
part.
exactly.
So being able to have a balance of how you tell someone's story to make sure that it's a fully dimensional idea of who that person was, and when you do take dramatic license, you take it in such a way that reflects what your research has sort of given you. That's usually the line that I try to walk. It's not
How
always
much,
perfect,
I'm
but I
sorry,
try.
how much research do you usually do? Like for the Lakers, that's a lot of people involved. And do you interview the actual people? Like, did you go and interview the players and the coach and all that? Or did you just sort of do research on your own?
We didn't talk to the actual people, but we
Mm,
did. Everybody wrote a book. Everybody except Dr. Buss
mm,
wrote a book. So we studied all of the stuff that they had out there. There were a myriad of articles. We had technical advisors. We had YouTube. We had a bunch of things within the zeitgeist of that period of
right.
time that we sort of looked to and scoured the earth with.
Did you ever play basketball?
I did.
Like,
Yeah, I
okay.
played. Yeah.
Okay. So were you a forward,
I played
or,
center in high school. I played forward in college. I always, I'm 6'7", 6'8", so I always stayed within that realm
okay.
of forward center.
Right. Got you. Did that help you with the writing, obviously, then, since you played basketball? Like, at least you
Um,
have
it,
some sense of it?
it helped me understand, when you're writing about basketball, it's difficult because you have to be able to write it in such a way that people who don't know the game sort of get what's happening in the game. So
Right.
being able to understand some of the nuance and specificity of the game itself helped. Um, so I'll say yes, more so than not. I mean, and the reason I pause is because I didn't play on the level that these guys played.
Right.
You know, they were special. So there's an intangible that's between my where I stopped and where they kept going
Going, right.
that I would never know. So, but to what I know as far as the basics and fundamentals of the game, yeah, that helped.
Okay. Did you always want to be a writer? Was that like an instinctual thing within you since you were a kid? Or was there some outside influence, like someone you knew or anything like that?
When I was in high school, I had a journalism teacher give me an assignment, and I did really well with it. It was a writing assignment, and he told me that if I ever worked as hard at writing as I did with as being the class clown, that maybe one day I could be a really good writer. And it stuck in my head. And when people would ask me, when adults would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would say writer because I had this teacher that validated me and said that I did something well. And throughout the course of my life, when it came to English or writing assignments, I had a natural fluidity when it came to
Mm,
being able to put words together or, you know,
mm,
phrases and things. And so, you know, I would say it was always there lurking, but I had other things, you know, being an athlete or trying to be an athlete or,
mm.
um, you know, just trying to figure out my way because, like I said before, writing just seemed to be too big.
Okay, it was just something that you didn't think was in your.
I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah, gotcha. What advice would you give to someone beginning their writing career or wanting to make that big move to LA? What's some big tips you would tell them to go for?
I would tell them to write, to come up with a disciplined plan of action to write every day. Um, the discipline of writing, and it seems like a simple thing, but if you can do it for free, if you can go in a room for 4 hours a day, whether it's midnight to 4 in the morning or 6 in the morning to 10, if you can figure out a way to put your butt in the seat every single day and write, at some point you will get used to it, like anything you
Mm,
do enough, and you'll get better at it.
mm,
And so I would say that. I would say if it's screenwriting in particular, find writers that you admire. You know, first it comes from movies that you
mm.
like, and then try to find the scripts that were those movies were based on, and sit
Okay.
down and watch the movie as you read the script and see how the two of them flow together. And
Mm,
it can help you develop your own writing style.
right. And since we are a music station predominantly, how does music influence your writing? Do you listen to anything when you're writing? Does music, like, do you think of music? I mean, I know that's sort of like a director's or, other people also will have their own vision, but does that influence your writing at all?
Yeah, I mean, usually with mood and tone. If I'm
Mm.
writing horror, heavy metal, things that are more melancholy, things
Right,
that are sadder, like I'll listen to John Carpenter's soundtracks to Halloween and different movies and things.
right.
Um, you know, if it's something that's a little bit more thoughtful, I listen to Sting. I'm a huge the Sting
Okay.
fan. It's all according to how I feel. I try to pick things that sort of go with a mood or a tone um, that sort of suits what the assignment is.
Okay. When you were first starting out, was your family supportive? Or did you have some hurdles there when you're like, oh, I'm going to LA and I'm going to be a writer? Were they supportive? Was that a hurdle for you at all?
I think most people had written me off at that point. You know, I think when you tell people that you're going to go to Hollywood and
Right.
do a thing, yeah, right, okay. I will say that there were a lot of people who, well, some people, I won't say
Right.
a lot. There were some people who, when I got there and things were difficult and I wanted to come home, they
Mhm.
encouraged me to stay and stick it out. And
Mm.
that was very helpful. But coming out, I think everybody was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Good luck.
Right, right. See you in a couple months when you
Exactly.
Right. Actually, can you explain to those that are watching that might not know what a showrunner is? Like, what exactly is a showrunner?
Yeah, a showrunner is a guy very, very much like the title, who runs the show, who decides um, the final. Um, Oftentimes picks the actors. Oftentimes decides what the actual story is, the end story is going to be. On some shows, you have a lot of people in a writer's room, and the showrunner is the final voice of saying what script goes in to be shot. Um, Showrunner kind of oversees everything,
Mm,
sort of the god of the show,
right.
with the executive producers sort of being demigods, or sort of being in position to have certain territory that they're under. But yeah, I'd say the head of the show.
Okay. What was going back to the Lakers, what was the hardest obstacle in putting that project together?
The sheer magnitude, I think, of the cast. I mean, we have some pretty high profile names on our roster, and trying to find the narrative real estate to make sure that all of them are serviced and all of them are getting story, some moments to shine. It's sort of like the game of basketball, making sure that the ball touches everybody's hand.
Mm.
That's always a difficult thing.
Yeah, it's a team sport and you have a lot of different people on the team.
Yes.
Did you have to get script clearance? And we can touch a little bit on that. Like, did all of them have to okay it, or did you have sort of a license to express the story the way you wanted to?
When you say they, are you talking
I mean, the
about?
basketball team, like the Lakers and the
We had
organization.
we had there was a certain degree of creative license, because a lot of things that were written were either in Jeff's book or in other books that we had read, and so legally it becomes public
Public
knowledge.
domain.
Yeah, so you can work within the confines of that, and we have a legal team that sort of goes through and fact checks and makes sure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and if we're
Right,
taking dramatic license, it's connective tissue to one thing leading to another.
right. Um, with that, when I was doing the research, you were part of the Boondocks, and there was like censorship involved with some of the material. How do you feel about censorship in general as a writer? Do you think, especially right now in society, there's a lot of, cancel culture and like even comedians, are under scrutiny. Do you think that as a creative, like whether a writer or a comedian, there should be exemptions sort of, or a little more free reign?
Well, I think there's a duality to everything. Very
Mm.
rarely is there one answer to,
A
whether or not a
complex
thing is,
question, right?
yeah, a complex question, whether or not it's right or wrong. It's
Right,
always up to the specific instance that you're talking about. I
right.
mean, I think in a perfect world, of course, you want to be able to say anything that you want to say, but I don't think that's realistic. I think
Mm,
that a lot of groups that have been marginalized over the course of time um, now have a voice when they didn't have a voice. And
right.
so, a lot of what we're calling cancel culture is really people who have been marginalized over time being able to speak up and
Express their
express.
reality of the world, right?
Exactly. So there's that. And then again, I come up in another time where a lot of comics, the Don Rickelses and Richard Pryors and
Mm,
Carlins, and they push the envelope creatively. But I think it has a lot to do with the period of time that we're in.
mm.
The only constant in life is change, and um, we have to make adjustments until life sort of settles into whatever groove it's going to be until it's into the next groove. So
Right.
there you go.
Do you feel a responsibility at all as an African American to, pay it forward or to help um, other African Americans that you in writing or in the industry at all?
I have a lot of folks that I talk to, and I try to do my best to, if
Right.
someone is interested in hearing whatever I have to say, I try to give them the best of what I have to say, regardless of who they are.
Right. Right.
Primarily, as you pointed out, yes, I am African American, so that's the majority of folks who come my way. But anyone, who wants to take, hear whatever I have to say, I'm willing to help. I think that, um, Yes, a lot of folks helped me, and I think it was a long time. That for a long time, I didn't think I really had anything to say that was worthy of listening to. But I've heard enough young writers say, "Man, I grew up on your shows," or I'm really,
Right.
really old, or and whatever has come with that age. You want to hear it? I'm willing to say it.
Yeah, well, when I was looking through, your list of of shows, yeah, like, I mean, obviously those are in a lot of people's childhoods and have probably, give them nostalgia or memories of certain parts of their own life. So yes, I'm sure you have a lot of people coming up to you. What else do you have going on? Are there any other projects you would like to mention right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking to my whiteboard. There's Winning Time. Got a couple of series in development at HBO. I have a Tiger Woods miniseries at some point. It'll come to life. I have the
Mhm.
television adaptation of Philadelphia. I have a few movies in development. I write about 10 different books a month. So
What, 10?
yeah,
Wow.
10 different. I'm writing one. Got one I got to get finished today. But yeah, it's always something happening, and which is a good thing. But again, sometimes it'd be nice to go outside and play.
Right. How long, like, what's the shortest time frame for, let's say, a show from idea conception to actually being visible online or on screen? Like, what's the shortest and what's the longest one? Like how
There,
long of a process can that be?
there's no real. It's a tough question to answer because there's so many variables that can come up to. It took us 4 years, I think, to develop Winning Time because of COVID, and
Okay.
whereas other things can live in development for a long time because the network isn't ready to air them, or you don't have the right actor or team or whatever, or there's so many different variables. I mean, I've been on shows that have been in development for damn near 10 years, and I've had shows that were sort of green lit and were on in a couple of weeks. Um,
Okay.
it's different in every case.
And what is success to you? What
Um, Being able to continuously work is always sort of the foundation. That initial fear of one day never being able to work. But I think being able to do quality work that sort of moves the needle in how both me as a creative, how I'm able to express myself, but also how it lands with people. The
mm,
things that really touch people's hearts and
mm,
imaginations, and they really enjoy. And you hear that certainly makes you feel better as a creative and
right.
helps you stay up until 2 in the morning and doing this.
Definitely. If you're helping people or telling stories that, move people, I'm sure that's a great feeling.
Always.
And with that, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Oh,
Is there anyone you would like to give a shout out to before we go?
oh man, I mean, there's so many people. I'll just say, to all the folks that have helped me along the way, and thank you for taking the time out to interview me, and
Mm.
hopefully we
Thank,
get to do it again.
thanks so much for joining us. And sorry about the few technical issues we had,
All
but
good.
but we made it through. So cool.
All right.
Well, thanks again and have a great day.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
Bye
thanks.
bye.